Bitcoin returns correctively to our level of interest and rejects. What are some possible Elliott Wave targets if we end up going lower? Let's dive in and talk about it. I want to start out here on the weekly and just looking at some of these support resistance lines that I have marked off and see why this was such a huge area here that we ended up rejecting from at the moment. It played as resistance in the past and then flipped into support. We came back to attempt to break above it. We rejected pretty hard away from it at the moment. Could be just an internal correction before we get another move up, but right now it's not looking the best as far as the PA goes. Typically, when we come up to a level of interest here, we want to break above it, either far above it, or we want to break above it, correct to it, flip it back into support or resistance, depending on which way we're looking, and then get some continuation. That hasn't happened at the smaller degree as we saw in the opening. We rejected pretty hard, and we'll look at it a little bit deeper when we go back into the lower time frames. But I wanted to start out here to show the next big areas if we do end up rolling down. Right now, 73 is the levels the Bulls have to beat to display some kind of confidence that that's the direction that the market wants to go. So that's the level right now. And as we break down below these, if we do, these levels are going to come into play as far as the Bulls having to return to that level, beat it, either blast above it, flip it into support, or just blast above it and keep on running. We are coming into an area of interest here that is played as support before, so we'll see if we can bounce off of that. We end up breaking down. These are some of the next levels to look for. A big one being the 50 area. We do have the 618 here at the 58, but you can see it's blatant here that we've had some flips in the past here where this is played as resistance in the past and then flipped to support here. And then same thing the further down we go. So this kind of is the big area that we're looking for now on a support and resistance side here at the larger degree time frame. Let's go ahead and dive into some of the smaller time frame and look at some Elliott as well. So I just want to make a quick stop here on the daily again to show again why this was such a huge level we were keeping an eye on. Again, we would played as resistance in the past, flipped to support, and then when we came back to it, we tried to spike through it. Nothing doing. We ended up rejecting hard away from there. And as you can see here, what I have kind of laid out is the way the market has been delivering, and this is the basics of Elliott Wave and what we're really looking for. When we look for direction in the market, we're looking for which way the sharp move or the impulsive moves are facing and which way the correctives are facing. So this delivery here, you can see when we were in the more bullish portion of the section here with Bitcoin's history, we were having the corrections facing down and the impulses or swift moves facing up, and that's really what I'm really looking for. And I tend to say we want to see the corrections facing down when we're in a bull market, keep confidence that that the market still wants to continue going up. The change of delivery has happened over here where we started getting the swift moves down and corrections pointing up. And we haven't really seen anything this massive or to this degree yet. So we have to consider that in the when we look over here as far where we are in the degree. But right now, we're having the swift moves down, corrections up. And we really need to see a change in delivery as far as that goes in the PA. So eventually, one of these corrections that are facing up are going to be swept here, and then we're going to get a kind of a bounce up like we did here and get that change of delivery where we break the low, come up, break the high of that last correction, and then correct internally to that range and a change of delivery of how the market is displaying or printing the PA. So at the end of the day, again, we have to break this pattern, really switch it around here on the price action side, putting the impulsive moves or the swift moves pointing down and the corrections pointing up. And before we get any confidence that the bull is potentially making a move here, we're going to get a swift move up and correction internal before we get the next higher high. So that's what we're looking for, and that's what this chart is displaying. Right now, the corrections are facing up, swift moves pointing down. Until that changes, we're going to expect things to be going to the downside or continuing to the downside, whichever way the swift moves are facing. There is one way out of this in Elliott Wave, and that is with the motive wave here in the form of a diagonal. Again, this isn't super textbook, but it could be a possibility. We're going to have to see how this all forms out or prints out here, and we'll dive deeper into that. But for right now, this is the only cleanest way out I can see as far as the Elliott waves go. Again, we can put in 1 2 1 2 1 2 all up in there all we want. And if we do end up getting a spike up, then we'll have to revisit that exactly what's going on. Right now, I'm leaning on this. If we end up holding this low here at 60K, and we end up putting in a higher high, especially with some swiftness here, this is would be my primary count. Let's go ahead and dive in a little bit deeper here and see what we got as far as counts go. All right, I want to start out here with the bullish side. Not a huge fan of this one, to be honest, just because this section here is so big. We could be putting in some kind of impulsive move down here with a large wave 4, but I don't love the look of it. We could be putting in some kind of WXYZ here. Again, this one's a little bit bigger than I'd like to see comparative to this one. Could be, we'll have to see if this level holds at 60K, and that's what these kind of counts depend on, is us holding above 60K at this point. If we end up breaking down lower, then we're going to have to reconsider another bullish count. Right now, these are the two I'm seeing that pop out. If we do end up holding 60K here, again, we would end up counting this, or I would at least. I actually have two different counts that I'm looking at right now. Both are a little bit more on the rare side. One of them being a leading diagonal here, and then we're going to get a nice deep retrace, which is pretty typical in a diagonal, holding the 60K before we end up getting a rip up. From here, because of this corrective fashion here, and we return to a level of interest and rejected, I would say this is less likely, but we end up coming down here to an area of interest as far as a retrace compared to this potential diagonal coming up, breaking this high here in a mode of fashion and correcting 2, I'm going to change my tune pretty quick here and attempt for a long. Again, a leading diagonal can project a large wave 3 is going to come. So I would believe that if we end up coming and things start stacking up in our favor, I think the RR is worth it. Try and catch a wave 3, especially if this is projecting or an extended wave 3. That's all I got on the bullish side right now. Again, it's all in the 60K hold. If that ends up breaking, then we're going to have to recount and reconfigure this whole count. Let's move on to the bear side. All right, here on the bearish, I think this is the more likely count at the moment, just the way it looks. I think we have a little bit more proportion between these moves or the subwaves within them. We have between 1 and 1618 between these moves. Typically, when we look for a correction, the primary action wave is going to be steep, and it's going to be faster, and it's going to be a little more swift than the secondary wave. So us taking a little more time to put this in is pretty typical of what we'd like to look for in slope analysis and Elliott Wave. Again, it's just a guideline, not necessarily needs to happen. That's something that kind of adds into the clues of the confluence as to what we think this pattern actually is. Right now, I think I have this counted a couple different ways down in here. Could be that the correction or the initial move ended here, but I think we have some waves here that need some offsets and some conclusion here. And I think have a little truncation here in the wave 5, kind of closes all these offsets off and ends it a lot nicer. And then we have some kind of double zigzag or sharp corrective move up here to finish off the correction. Either way, right now, what we're looking for is an impulsive move down to offset this primary wave here as a wave A of the Y. And then we need the wave C of the Y here to complete. We do have some clustering going on here. One area is going to be the 50K. Now, if this does come down in an impulsive move, that could be it. Again, we could be looking for, this could just be another primary action wave and could be heading lower. But right now, what we're really looking for at the moment is an impulsive move down here and potentially a bounce up to play as a C3 setup. But that's getting a little bit ahead of myself here. We do have a cluster here. Right now, I have a pull from the W off the X, which ended up at the turning at 382, which is typical spot to look for an X in a double zigzag. And right now, that puts us around 50 exactly. Then I took the secondary pull from this inner zigzag here, the primary actionary wave of the zigzag here, the A wave, off of the B wave, and then projected that for the C wave. One most likely target for a zigzag is the 618. So if we get lucky, we do have some clustering here, and this is where the 618 is off of this pull here. So we do have that at the 50, and that also lines up with some other things as well. We do have a nice round target, and this red box here indicates the support and resistance lines that we looked at earlier over to the left. So we do have a lot of stuff here at the 50. So I'm looking for a potential reaction, if not a bounce up. Even if it is a corrective bounce, I think coming to the 50, we're going to be hitting a lot of stops, and some people might be entering just because it has retraced so much farther down into this area. I think this is a good area to consider looking if we end up breaking the 60K area. Again, I'm not catching a knife. I'm looking for that initial reaction up and then our internal retracement for potential follow through. If we end up breaking down, this is the secondary spot we want to look for. We have the channel line here that has played as support in the past. And this is typically where you want to see a sharp correction end, is at the end of the space channel parallel right here. And it also lines up with the 1-to-1 off of this pull here. Again, depending on where you think this initial move ends. If you think it's here, it's a little bit deeper. If you think it's here, it's a little bit shallower, but it's right in this box. So right in this box is the typical spot you would look for a C wave of a zigzag compared to the A wave off of the B wave. So these are the two areas, if we end up breaking down here at the larger degree, where we'd want to see some kind of reaction for a potential for it to turn up and either put in another correction for either even more further down, or for a spot for it to actually get some legs and start moving up to the upside. So I'm alarming these two areas, and these are the two areas I'd be looking for a reaction and an initial impulse move up correction for a potential of more continuation to the upside at some degree, a potential directional change. So that's all I got here on the daily. Let's go ahead and dive into this area here and see what we got in here. Down here at the 1 hour, I want to start out with a post that I put it on X. If you don't follow me over on X, definitely go check me out there. I post there a lot more, and you can see what I'm thinking at the smaller degree in real time, more or less. So I posted this a couple days ago and laid out what I was looking for, essentially. A lot of traders look at this and say, okay, we're going to buy here and then ride this whole thing up. But in actuality, the way I've been trading lately and the way I think has been a lot more conducive to my style of trading is that I wait for that initial impulsive move up, and the trade isn't actually in here catching the turn. And it all depends. A lot of things have to line up before I start trying to catch the turn here. It has to be a lot more cleaner than it was here for me. If we ended up getting one more leg down, then I probably would have taken a little stab here. But this isn't actually where the trade is. Even if everything lines up, the trade isn't actually trying to catch the falling knife or the exact pivot, in my opinion. Again, it can vary for me depending on how everything is set up and what's going on in the PA. A conservative trade is really what happens after the pivot happens here. What we're really looking for, and when I have these little circles for, these are where I'm looking for the C3 setup. If you want to learn more, go check it out on X. It's under the pinned comment. And on my YouTube channel, I have a whole video about it. But these are the areas that I'm looking for conservatively. Aggressively, all day, I'd be looking down here. We have divergence. We have a 5-wave move. Again, the count isn't ideal or super textbook, in my opinion. There's some questioning here, and that's why a conservative trader would want to wait in this situation to see how this plays out. We could have just keep bouncing off of these lower highs and lower lows and these lower levels of interest here, and we could have just kept on rolling. Waiting for that initial motive move up is what I preach on waiting for on the conservative side, and then looking for that internal retracement here. And that's pretty much what we're looking for. We tracked this pretty good all the way through. We didn't get as deep as usual, but again, it's taking me into my area of interest. If we play the setup correctly and take profit in the right locations, we can profit off it, even if it doesn't get to our exact location, because things in the market don't tend to be exact as often as we all like them, I'm sure. But this is what I was looking for when I posted this. Again, the trade wasn't essentially down here. I was looking for a potential pivot. And that's the other thing that's great about Elliott Wave is if we think a wave 5 of 5 is coming in, there's no reason we should be taking a short here unless we're super degen at the 1 minute. I'm expecting that wave 5. Trading the wave 5 can be a little sketch at smaller time frames just because you can't have such a quick, turnaround there. It just dips, sweeps liquidity, and reverses and starts heading back against you. So Elliott Wave isn't always about entries. It's about giving you signals of not to enter the market or enter a certain direction, because there's a possibility even with the EWO divergence and all that kind of stuff, that we're going to be heading back up, possibility. So keeping us out of the market is just as much of a win as telling us when to get in the market and when to take profit, in my opinion. So that's what's really great about Elliott Wave in that aspect. But again, this is what we're looking for as far as the trade was. We were looking for a completion of this impulse, a move back up to this level, a possible rejection back to this level, and then continuation up, breaking the primary motive wave up, at least potentially into our area of interest. And this is where we would take profit off of this trade, and then potentially look for a trade on this end as well. Can't remember if I traded this exactly. I think I may have traded ETH or SOL on these, but this is what the directional changes that I was looking for. But as you can see, it played out pretty good here. This is where we were over here. Initially, we were right here. We got the pivot up. It bounced off exactly off of our level of interest here, came back down to our level of interest back here as well, and then continued up, breaking this high, but it could not break this level of interest, and we ended up rolling back down. So it played out pretty good overall is what I'm getting at. But in any case, here's what I'm looking at now for the Elliott Wave. I think we have a nice, decent looking impulsive move down. Not the most ideal, but we have a swift 5-wave move down with some other clues pointing to this being an impulsive move. 3-wave move up, and then I think we have another impulsive move down potentially done here with an extension in the 5th wave. Now we have to look to this correction here. It's the weekend. Things can change. It's a very news happy kind of situation going on right now. So a lot of things can change, and things typically do change, at least previous months and last year on Sunday. Trump used to drop some news on Sunday and get the market all worked up. So for right now, going into the new week, the new month is coming up, and things could change. We have futures open and stocks open coming up as well. So what I'm watching for here is if we do some kind of correct move here, I am expecting a potential rollover. Again, we have to look for that reaction here. I think this is a good spot to look. We got the algo zone here and some levels of interest as well that have played as support and resistance in the past. So we do have an impulsive move down here, 3-wave move up, and an impulse move down. That could be the end of the move, and then we could be putting in some kind of zigzag here before we get the move up and out for either further correction sideways or up and out potentially. One thing, obviously, that is pretty blatant here is this looks a lot larger than this. So it could be that this is of a lesser degree, and we would be doing some kind of A, B, 1, 2 here, and then rolling over. Ideally, here I'm looking for a short. I am still long, even back over here. So I'm holding on to that long just in case, but I am looking for a short as well. I've already entered in short up here. I'm looking for that second entry to add some more to my short entry from earlier this week. So right now, again, I'm looking for a correction back up. It doesn't have to reach this area by any means, but this is where I'm going to be looking for a reaction and a potential for a move over. If this is already in a wave 3, again, it's going to go down a lot swifter than we expect, potentially. We might not get this full retracement. It might only come up to the 382, let's say. So I'm going to be watching for what kind of pattern actually prints out here and then play off of that. If we end up coming up here in a corrective fashion, like a double zigzag, it looks like a possibility here. Into the 382, it might be a spot for me to take a bite. But this is the main area I want to look for, even if we just get a spike up at open for futures open. This is going to be the area that I'm looking for a reaction out of to add to the short that I already have from up here. So that's what I'm looking for here on the shorter term. Let's go ahead and dive into some of the correlated assets that I'll be watching. All right, I'm just going to go over these correlated assets here real quick. I want to look at ES and DXY. This is what I typically look at every day. Just see where these correlated assets are. DXY, I think down here on the 4-hour, we have a good look for a potential impulsive move up. When that 5th hits, we would expect some kind of rollover or retracement, if not a full retrace of this impulsive range. If that does happen, again, correlated assets don't necessarily mean it's 100% correlated one way or the other. Look at it more like a tailwind or a headwind or some kind of added confluence into a directional move on the rest of the assets that it is correlated to. So DXY, if we get an impulsive move up or this move up here, that could mean that these other assets are going to fade down a little bit more. that could move us past these levels that we're looking for here on BTC and ETH, and then we get a potential move up for a retracement, depending on what this impulsive move is. This isn't the strongest looking impulse, and it could be attached to some kind of corrective move here. We're just sitting here basically putting in a broadening wedge, sweeping levels of liquidity and going sideways essentially this whole time. So this could be another one of those where it's finished as an impulse move and we head back down. And then this would act as a tailwind for ETH and BTC to potentially move back up and either in a retracement, a deeper retracement, or move back up. Again, we don't want to get too much hopium in here with the move back up to all-time high quite yet till we get some of these pivots taken out here, but that's how things start off. We get some nice tailwind, some nice news, something kind of hype the market up, and we end up moving back up. So DXY, we end up finishing as a wave 5 here and as an impulse and ends up coming back down. That could help these other assets either react or at minimum react potentially, or at least go sideways or retrace a little bit here. Yes, I was a little bit hesitant to call a top here just because we have been going sideways for so many days and weeks, and then slowly putting in like lower highs, lower lows, and lower highs. I'll zoom in a little bit here in a second, but this is the next major levels I'm watching for it to hold. We already ended up breaking 65.37 and retracing to it and then rejecting from it on the smaller time frame. So this is the next major level that the bulls kind of have to reclaim here and show us some strength as far as on the bulls side. And then these are just some of the other ones to keep an eye on. This one's the most blatant one at 61.60 essentially. This has been a big jump from March when we were looking for this. And I think one of my earlier videos, we were looking for this to be a potential here where we end up getting a dump into April and then bouncing up and going out to all new time high. And that ended up playing out pretty good. This is the next major level that bulls want to definitely hold. If we start breaking down there, then this could flip back into resistance and then things ain't going to look so great. ES, again, is now that all the corporations and everyone has bought all of our bags on BTC, we're now tied to the ES, in my opinion. It's going to be more of a risk asset for sure, but I think it is going to move with ES. So when ES is not happy, depending on the situation, obviously, but more likely than not, BTC is not going to be happy just because they are now pretty much tied together and correlated in direction at least. So if ES is happy, BTC is more likely to be happy. So we want to see ES recover, at least go sideways. Now, the only thing that's holding us together here, especially if ES continues to fall and accelerate, I do believe BTC is going to follow down and accelerate with it. Now, there is quite a difference between where ES is retracing its primary move, retracing its move up over the last couple years. BTC and ETH and all the crypto is pretty beat up at this time. So the only saving grace if we do end up rolling over hard here is that these are already pretty beat up. So we might not see as much of a move down, or it might not be as severe of a move down just because we've been moving down a lot longer than ES has. And it might just be so beat up there's no more sellers or buyers or whatever selling off and capitulating because they probably already have at some point. But that's what we're looking for. I could see a nice flush down here, and then that would finish our double zigzag potential, and then we start getting a move up. If not in a correction, then we start potentially getting a higher bounce. But these things, they need to play first. We need to sweep this low, in my opinion, reclaim it, and then we'll see where we go from there. So again, here on ES, I thought this was a little bit more corrective. We ended up going sideways, putting in lower highs and lower lows, and we haven't gotten that swift move that we typically see in these. So when we hit a top, typically we get a swift move down here. Mostly that seems to be what's happening. And here we got a swift move down and then started going sideways for a couple months until we ended up breaking this level, rejecting from it, and heading down and accelerating. So this is more of a curved top than typical. So we'll see how this plays out. If we end up accelerating, I think because of the correlation between ES and crypto, BTC and ETH alts are going to end up bleeding as well. Those are just my thoughts on Bitcoin for now. As always, I'm just rolling with the waves. That's price action prints. If you have any questions, thoughts, or a different perspective, drop a comment down below. I read them all. If you enjoy this kind of Elliott Wave analysis or breakdown, please give me a like or follow here, and please follow me over on X. I post a lot more over there, to be honest. If you want to learn more, I'd recommend coming over to TradeDevils.com here and check out Trade Devils University. This is primarily where I learned my technical analysis during the last bear market in 2017, 2018. There is a free white belt course here, so you can check it out to see if you like the delivery and the information. And then from there, you can always move on and add on to your technical analysis knowledge. Also, if you're interested, you can come and check out our Discord. It's free. You do get some free Elliott Wave cheat sheets that I still use to this day. Definitely recommend coming and getting those at least and checking out the Discord. But as always, trade safe, trade clarity. Take it easy. Later.